The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WDenaRadio.com.
It is the Morning Sports Desk on a Friday, the 4th of October. I'm CJ Baumgartner. There's Corey Tackman. Corey, a lot going on. And before we get too deep into our high school football previews of our broadcast tonight on our Hubbard Radio-Wadena stations, do want to give a shout out in the Wadena Deer Creek volleyball sphere to senior Addison Gravel. The setter reached 3,000 sets on Tuesday in Barnesville in a 5-set victory for the Wolverines. She reached, I believe, in 2022, got to the 2,000 career set mark. And now, as a senior, reaching that 3,000 mark is, it's just a big milestone in and of itself. That's a big number in 3,000, Corey. But just how impressive is that for a setter to reach that milestone?
It's as impressive as you think it is. It's really good, and she's been a very good setter for a long time. I think she is absolutely one of the premier setters in the area. She has great hands, and if you can get her the ball, she can put it right on its spot. But one of the things that she's got really going for her too is she's a good athlete. So she can get to balls that aren't perfect and still find a way to find her offense. She's a nice volleyball player, and if you like watching setters, Addie is one that you need to keep an eye on. She does an awesome job.
Talking with Coach Volkman, we just got done doing our Wolverines weekly interview for Saturday, and she just said, she echoed a lot of the things that you said, Corey. But as somebody who's come in as an 8th grader to be a setter on a varsity volleyball team is not an easy task, and to be in that mark, and like Sue said, it's not always easy to get to that set mark, because if you're a successful volleyball team like the Wolverines have been, you play in a lot of 3-set games where you might not always get the numbers because it's a volume stat. And volleyball you don't have a set amount of sets that you play every night. You have at least 3, but some teams have more, and that can make the raw numbers go up a little bit. And for them to get this milestone, obviously they played a lot of postseason volleyball, so that kind of helps catch up. I'm not sure how that factors into the rankings. I assume it does. But just overall a big milestone. So congratulations to her. All right, moving into our football games tonight, Corey. We have one on the fan. Tyler should have a good one, right?
I think so. Parker's Prairie hosts Staples-Motley tonight, and these are two of the premier football teams in the region. Parker's Prairie, a Class A school; Staples-Motley, a AA school. The Panthers suffered their first loss of the season, a close one last week to Breckenridge and the Cowboys. It was a 14-12 final score. The Cowboys have, no surprise, another very good football team over there again this year. As far as the section goes for Parker's Prairie, it leaves the section, I think, still wide open for them. Breckenridge is in 6A, and Parker's Prairie is in 4A.
No, they're all in 6A.
They are all in 6A?
Yeah.
Never mind. So that makes it a little more difficult all of a sudden, doesn't it? Anyway, but it was, a really close game, and I was in Parker's Prairie earlier this week, and he said, Derek Denny, the principal there, said, we play the difficult part of our schedule the second half of the season, with Breckenridge being that first game, and they went Breckenridge, they go Staples-Motley, Pillager, and then someone. I don't remember who coses out the season for them.
I think that's it. Right?
Is that well? There's
one more. There's one more. You're right.
One more, yeah. But anyway, Breckenridge played the difficult part of their schedule in the first half of the season, and Derek Denny said that was. It was evident that Breckenridge was ready to be punched in the mouth and punch back, and we hadn't quite built up those chops quite yet. So that's, to me, what is going to make this game tonight even more interesting, because Staples-Motley is very good, 5-0 in AA football. As a matter of fact, if you look at the statewide polls and rankings, now with the loss in Class A, Parker's Prairie overall drops down to, what did I see them at 21st in Class A. Not far behind is Breckenridge. They're at 16, so they're just trailing Breckenridge now in that 6A power poll. But Staples-Motley, after much clamoring, overall they moved to 5th in the Class 2A rankings. Now, if you look at the state ranking polls, this is still the part I don't quite understand what the difference is. Staples-Motley is not in the top 10 according to the state rankings, but there's an overall ranking that Staples-Motley has moved up to 5th. So the Cardinals are very good, and this is going to be, after playing Pillager a couple of weeks ago, they got Pillager on their home field. Now they have to go on the road and play a very good football team. So this is a challenge that they haven't quite had yet, of having to go somewhere and play their brand of football and play their style, and to do it at a very good Parker's Prairie team who probably has a sour taste in their mouth from losing last week. So that is a 6:40 pregame, a 7 o'clock kickoff with Tyler Grunwald tonight on AM 1430 and 98.5 FM The Fan. By my money, probably the best football game in the region tonight.
That should be a good one. And once again, it's on The Fan. Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see Parker's Prairie now. How do they handle, this is a testament of good teams, good coaching staffs, all that stuff. How do you handle a loss that maybe you felt like you should have won? And how do you come back? Does it kind of shake your foundation, or does it kind of have a rally around the flag effect? It'll be fascinating to see. Should be a good one. Tyler's got the call there tonight. I have a game tonight, Corey, moved up an hour early, a 5:40 pregame and a 6 o'clock kickoff on the Superstation K106, 105.9 FM, also streaming online at WDenaRadio.com and the Superstation K106 and mobile app. I go up north today with Dirk as the Wadena Deer Creek Wolverines take on the Walker Hackensack Akeley Wolves. It'll be a matchup between two teams that are 1-4 on the season, both looking for that second win, and two teams who I think if you look at them, they say we've had some tough schedules in that first half of the season.
Yeah.
For Walker Hackensack Akeley, they went to Red Lake County, lost 40-0, then played Parker's Prairie, lost 36-6, Staples-Motley 40-0, New York Mills 34-0, and then Pillager 47-6. Looking at Wadena Deer Creek, they played Kirkhoven Murdoch Sunberg and they lost 38-7, played Pillager 48-0. That was a loss. Pine River Bacchus, a 28-16 win. Parker's Prairie, a 53-0 loss and a 35-6 loss to New York Mills. Now, the fourth quarter got away from the Wolverines, but that game was close, closer than that score will indicate. But these are two teams that I think they both look on the schedules and they kind of say, hey, with what's coming up versus what we have tonight, this maybe is our chance to get that second win of the season and a matchup we feel against a team that's very similar to us. For Walker Hackensack Akeley, they've kind of found a nice little groove here. I know their record doesn't indicate it, but they are a better football team than what they have been in recent years. Talking with Coach Petermeyer for a pregame interview, he said, look, they're more talented than they've been in the last couple of times that they've played them, even though they've just ran into some buzzsaws like Pillager and Staples-Motley and Parker's Prairie and all that stuff. And the same thing for Wadena Deer Creek with their schedules. This will be fascinating to see as these two teams go at it tonight. Walker Hackensack Akeley does not have a home win this season. Wadena Deer Creek does not have a road win this season. So something's going to give tonight. One team is going to get it. It should be an interesting one. Wadena Deer Creek will be without their starting quarterback, Drew Lawrence, for the rest of the season. Unfortunately, he had an injury that is going to keep him sidelined for his senior campaign. And as much as that stings for that team, Leo Petrowski's coming in. He's the backup quarterback. He's filled in a little bit here and there when Lawrence has been banged up or just kind of had a helmet fly off and needed to take a rep. So he's been the guy that's filled in a little bit before. He's had some JV reps, but of course, nothing can really simulate the varsity experience. But going in as the starting quarterback versus kind of having to fill in for the last quarter and change of last week's game against New York Mills, hopefully you kind of have that full week to get your confidence if you're Wadena Deer Creek and Petrowski. You kind of see where you can go from there. And plus, it's asking a quarterback to do something Wadena Deer Creek in recent years didn't ask their quarterbacks to do, just, hey, run the football and just hand off and play that game, which I think is much easier transition than, last year when Wadena Deer Creek had some quarterback injuries. They're an offense that wanted to throw and be athletes and get their athletes in space. And this year, I think it'll be a little more, not that I don't think you can handle it, but just a little more simplified, I think, for that team. Walker Hackensack Akeley's got a nice little squad despite their record. I haven't been up to the Walker football field yet in Walker for Walker Hackensack Akeley. Corey, I've heard your glowing recommendations just on the scenery alone.
It's and because you get an hour earlier kickoff tonight. I mean, it's you go past the high school. The football field is above the hill. From the high school, and then you'll climb up into the press box, so you'll overlook the football field, overlook the school. You get to look down the hill at the lake. The leaves are changing. It's going to be an absolutely beautiful evening in Walker, just for the pure scenery of it all, not to mention what should be a competitive football game on a Friday night, which is all you can ask for, I think.
Overlooking the city of Walker and Leech Lake, it'll look beautiful, because my memories of Walker, we were talking about this before, and this is nothing against the fine people of Walker and Hackensack Akeley communities, but my summer job, I worked on the Coke trucks, and it was just, there's a lot of people in the Walker area in the summertime, and it led to much of my summer being spent in that town, sweating my butt off, working 13-hour shifts, and then driving home from Brainerd only to come back and do this thing again in like a day. So that's I got to get over a little bit of my own PTSD in that, but it should be a good one today. There's another Walker story I have. This was Legion baseball. I think I can say this story because I don't know if this person's still in that role. I won't say what school it was from, but we were in Park Rapids for playoff games in Legion baseball. And because they typically were the host site. And we got about 2 innings into our game, and it started raining. And not only that, it started pouring. Like, Corey, within 10 minutes of it raining, puddles were showing up in the Park Rapids infield. So it was like, okay, we definitely can't play here today. And we've already started this game. So let's see if we can just take it somewhere else and play. Now, the storm was moving, or the pod, or the cell, whatever you want to say, was going south. And some people threw out the idea of, hey, let's go up to Walker, and we could play these games there, because Walker was one of the teams that were in these group one of these group of teams that were going to play a playoff game that night. So, like, hey, let's go up to Walker and play the games. The weather will be perfect up there. Let's go play the games there. And everybody else, I think, made the decision like, look, man, it's a Tuesday night. It's already like 6 o'clock. By the time we get up to Walker, or it's like 4 o'clock, but by the time, like, it's 5:30, by the time you drive up to Walker and get everything going, are you even going to be able to finish the game? Like, there's a few questions. And I think, let's be honest, nobody really wanted to make that drive up north, because we were already in Park Rapids, which for us was an hour drive north. So do we want to go another 40 minutes up just to finish this game? Or do we say, hey, let's try and go south? So we went to Monaga to try and play those games. And the weather hadn't quite gotten there yet. So it was sunny. We were stretching and getting the warm up to get ready to go, Corey. And all of a sudden, you could see the clouds rolling in. It hadn't started raining, but you could see them coming. You knew they were close. And we weren't like, it wasn't like get out of the van and like start playing. It was like, all right, stretch and warm up, and no infield, but like teams are just taking their time for everybody to get settled. And basically this thing was coming. We knew it was coming, this rain. And somebody just starts yelling, we could have went to Walker. It's nice and sunny up in Walker. And forever, this is an inside joke with me and my dad, because he was also there and he heard the same guy say that, is anytime we mentioned Walker, like I'd mentioned working in my summer job, like, yeah, I'm going up to Walker today. He'd be like, oh, is it nice and sunny up there? Yeah. And so the entire time it's nice and sunny up in Walker. So if I mention that on the broadcast, those of you who listen tonight, there's a little inside joke.
Did you end up getting the game in, or was it all?
Oh, no, it rained, and then we just played in Park Rapids the next day. All of that for nothing. The guy probably was right.
He was definitely right. That's so funny.
But legit, he was just yelling it in our general direction. We're just like stretching. We're like 15, 16 years old. We're like, I don't know what's going on, man. They just told us to come here.
Yeah, like, I don't know, whatever, dude.
Yeah, whatever, man. Anyway, so that's something that definitely happened, and that's why Walker will always. Those are 2 reasons why Walker will always stick in my mind. Other than the time a year ago, not last season, but the season before in basketball, Bertha Hewitt had a tournament there, and I was going to go watch my brother, and they played a game a day. So they're going to play one game on a day, then they were going to stay overnight at a hotel, and then play the second game. my family didn't get there in time for the first game. We just knew we were going to get there at night, get some food, spend the night at a hotel, just kind of make a little day of it. And we got there, and then the next morning we're like, okay, well, let's go watch the game. And my brother calls us and says, there's no game. The other team withdrew themselves from the tournament. So we drove all the way up to Walker for nothing. But we did go to Reed's. So shout out Reed's.
Got a nice little hotel stay out of it, and mom and dad paid for a little dinner. I'm sure it's pretty good.
Yeah, it was fine for me. I didn't have anything going on. I took the week off of work, so it was real easy for me. But those are my memories of Walker. It's nothing against the good people of Walker, Hackensack, or Akeley. It's just shenanigans always follow me, I guess, whenever I go up there. Whatever. All right. Let's talk a little Minnesota Vikings football, Corey, and then we're going to talk about some big changes the Twins have had in their personnel department and coaching staff. But first, let's talk Minnesota Vikings. They go across the pond to have a spot of tea with the good old chum Aaron Rodgers.
Hello, governor.
Mm-hmm.
How awful English accents can we?
Well, I tried it. I filled in for you on the big show the other day in the morning, and we did Dead or Alive with Daryl, and somebody was British, and we did British accents for a good couple minutes there.
Daryl's the all-time worst accent person in the building. His accents stink. They're so funny.
It was a good day. I mean, I'm not great at them either, so we both did awful accents and both kind of knew that they weren't that great, so you could kind of really lean into how ridiculous they were. Because I think at the end, mine turned to like an Australian accent. But to be fair, an Australian accent, they were English. They were British, like a lot of that's where. Yeah. So it just devolved a little bit.
Yeah, that's the fun of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they gonna play at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and beat the Jets? What do you think?
I don't know if it's at Tottenham Hotspur. If it's like it is okay, yeah. Because what was the other place? The Wembley Stadium was like where they used to go before, and then they moved to this other one and whatever. I
think they move it around because there's games in Germany. There's games in.
There's more than one London game.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, we were going to send the Panthers and the Giants to Germany, by the way.
Yep. Quit losing major wars, and then you can get better games.
Yeah, exactly. I always feel like football in Brazil, football in England, isn't always the best use of it. Football in Germany is apparently popular. Like, they have their own German football league because a lot of Division II athletes will go over there and play.
Yep.
And I just feel like, based on our previous comment, the Germans are violent people, I think, historically speaking. So, I think they just like football. I can say that. My family is German ancestry, so I get a pass to say that. Or not, I don't care.
What am I argue against it?
Yeah. Anyway, the Vikings, I think, do get to win. I think the Jets are not a bad team on paper, but they had a bad game against the Broncos, and bad because of I think the being on the upper end of that hurricane, it made it a soggy game at MetLife Stadium. They lost to a quarterback who threw for negative passing yards in the first half. Everybody keeps talking about the cadence with Aaron Rodgers. The Jets still aren't on his cadence. He's still not in tune with his wide receivers. And I just don't see it quite clicking in this game, especially against Brian Flores' defense that is going to try and generate pressure, and the Jets' offensive line is not good. So it'll be interesting to see if the game plan for the Vikings is, hey, let's keep Rodgers in the pocket, let's try and fluster him, or if it's because, historically you don't want Rodgers getting out of the pocket. That's how he burns you. But also it's I don't know, is his Achilles healthy? Let's let him run around. Let's let 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers run and see if he's healthy enough to sling it 40 yards down the field. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the Vikings do win this game because I think the defenses are equal, but I think that the offensive line of the Vikings beats the offensive line of the Jets, and I think that's what's the difference in this one.
I'm a little confused about the Rodgers talk this week because, yes, he did not play well, but 1 week prior,
everybody was crowning him.
They were like, oh, Rodgers is back. The Rodgers we all know and love is back. So I don't know what's to make of it. I'm sure the answer is somewhere between the Hall of Fame Aaron Rodgers and this guy's washed Aaron Rodgers. The answer lies somewhere in between. And what is still true, no matter what, with Rodgers is he is not easily confusable.
Right.
even with this Brian Flores defense, Rodgers has been around the block way too many times to be overwhelmed. Now, you can overwhelm any quarterback of all time by just punching them in the mouth over and over again.
Right.
And if the offensive line can't block and they can't give him time, whatever. But if the Vikings can't pressure him, Rodgers has the ability to not be overwhelmed by the scheme and still find ways to pick you apart.
You're not going to be able to play mind games with Rodgers.
You're not going to be able to play mind games with him. He's going to get you. He will figure you out, and he will find a way to make a big play and keep a play alive and make a big throw at some point. Now, his ability to throw the ball downfield looked weird last week. But again, that follows the week before where everybody was like, Aaron Rodgers is back. So I don't know exactly what to think. I think the Vikings are 2.5-point favorites.
That sounds about right. Weird things can happen in London.
It feels right. You can't just rule out the weirdness of the travel. The Vikings practiced this morning early.
TJ Hawkinson returned.
TJ's back. He officially could start practice today. This was his first day, I believe. He could start practicing. He's not gonna. He'll play after the bye week, I think, is when.
Right. I think some people said he might not even play the Detroit game. It might be Thursday at the Rams.
Well, yeah, and that because it is a quick turnaround from Detroit, a Sunday versus Detroit, and then a Thursday at the Rams. That's kind of weird. Anyway, that's besides the point. I do. I will say this, like I've said all year long. Would I be surprised if the Vikings lose this one? Because of the weirdness of it? No, I would not be. And it's Aaron Rodgers, and the guy just deserves a little bit. He just deserves a little bit of football respect. Maybe not personal respect or.
No, he flushed that away a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. But as far as football goes, he's earned it. But can they win this game? Oh, easily. They could. It could be another one of those like where 5 minutes into the third quarter, holy balls, I can't believe they're just crushing them like this. It could very easily be in that spot again. It's just, they're so fun to watch this year, CJ.
They're flying around the football, and this will be the thing because the Vikings, they've only trailed for like 3 minutes this season, Corey. It's fascinating. And it was against the New York Giants, of all people, because CJ Ham had the fumble, the Giants kicked the field goal, they got up 3-0, and then the Vikings scored a touchdown, and they haven't trailed this season since. It's fascinating. Whether they've gotten the ball first, boom, score a touchdown like they did against Green Bay. Oh, the Texans have the ball first, ooh, interception on the opening drive. And that, I think, is the Vikings have been good on offense, but it's not just that. It's that the defense has gotten turnovers, and the Vikings have, again, been able to capitalize. The Kevin O'Connell teams, and I didn't know if this was a Kirk Cousins thing. Maybe this is starting to turn into a Kevin O'Connell trend. I don't know. Maybe it's too early to tell. But, like, they get out to quick starts. That opening script is almost perfect. Like, they come out and they punch you in the mouth on offense and defense. And even when Kirk Cousins was here, their opening scripts, their opening drives, they'd always go down the field and score a touchdown. And in the first quarter, they looked dynamic. And then like midway through the second quarter to midway through the third quarter, it feels like they kind of lulled to sleep, or like they just kind of, whether it's like Kevin O'Connell figuring out game flow or whether it's just kind of mid-game adjustments or whatever it is, they kind of stagnate. And then typically they pick it up right at the end like the Vikings did. They jumped out in those first two quarters, punched Green Bay in the mouth, were very quiet for the entire third quarter, and then just got one good drive to get them a field goal to kind of just make sure that they could hang on and beat Green Bay. So that, I think, is another fascinating aspect is, one, how do the Vikings play from behind? Because we haven't seen Sam Darnold play from behind where maybe he feels like he needs to gunsling a little bit more than he has had to. And also, just if the Vikings do get up big again, how does Kevin O'Connell kind of manage that in-game adjustment? Because it feels weird to critique a coach like, oh, man, you don't know how to coach up 28-0, idiot. Like, what are you thinking?
Well, I think it's a fair assessment and it's a fair critique, but I do think when you're up 28-0, your mindset changes completely. Like you don't. I don't know. It's really hard to look at that. I still, maybe it's because I'm a homer, but I don't look back at that Packers game. It was close and it was interesting. but the Vikings killed the Packers like that. You know what I'm saying? It still feels like to me that game was like, it got weird and wonky. The example I always come back to and will think about for the rest of my life is twofold. And you'll have to help me with a name because I can't remember the name. The Dallas Cowboys backup.
Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush beats the Vikings in kind of a like, Cooper who? Who's the and what?
He's Sunday Night Football on the road in Minneapolis.
And you just, how is this even possible? This doesn't make sense. How can? And then the Vikings pick up the rocket scientist and win and go on the craziest hot streak ever. Right? He has been in the building. Was that against Atlanta?
Against Atlanta, yeah, he like been with the team for 3 days.
He hadn't even been in the building because the game was the game in Atlanta too. So like it was just this really weird thing. And I say all of that as a reminder that sometimes when things get weird, when things get out of the parameters of what is a normal football game, Josh Dobbs coming in at the very last second without having, there is no planning for those sorts of situations, right? If you're up 28-0 at almost halftime, there's no planning for, is the other team going to not mail it in, but just coast? Are they going to fight harder than they've ever fought before? That's outside of the parameters of what is normal. And I don't think it's anyone's fault that it got weird. Right. It's a good reminder that weird things happen. And there's sometimes you just have to survive those weird things.
Right. Well, the Packers are a good team in the NFL. It's the NFL. Yeah. Everybody's good. Like anybody is capable of doing anything. The Vikings fans saw them come down from 34-0. So like that's another really great example. If your team can be down that much and come back and win, it stands to reason. So could someone else. Right. And it's just the nature of the NFL. Like, you know that Green Bay was going to punch back, and people will rag on the Vikings for playing shell defense in the second half. Well, yeah, because everybody rips on Steve Wilkes for calling a cover zero before halftime and Jordan Addison gets a touchdown. Like,
what are you supposed to do?
Right. Yeah, you're going to give up yards and you're going to give up some scores because your defense isn't trying to shut them out anymore. Your defense is just trying to make them work hard. Like like you said, it completely shifts what your mindset is.
Right.
You're not like, we got to stop them 3 and out. I mean, ideally, but it's like, if they're going to score on us, they're going to need to go on a 10-play drive, and it's going to need to take 8 minutes of clock, and they're going to need to and then by that time, you just hope that you can run out the clock on them. And I know we've talked about playing the not lose and whatever. And Mike Zimmer was the critique of him is that sometimes he'd get a little too conservative and whatever.
He could kick a field goal on the opening drive and be like, let's run the timeout on this one.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's why they lost to Cooper Rush, right? Because Zimmer's like, we don't need to score too much. Let's just score 17 points and we'll hold them to 14. And okay, never mind. All of a sudden we're from behind and now pressure's on. And he would open the door that way. Where and now of course it's swung because of course everything swings on a pendulum. And now that KOC is aggressive and unapologetically aggressive, everybody's like, oh man, everybody's going to start yearning for the days of Mike Zimmer running with Dalvin Cook every single time in the second half.
Well, and I think it's important too that it's not a game of computer chess. You're playing a game with real people. So
right,
even if you are KOC and you are going to remain moderately aggressive, you're gonna
be passing.
You're gonna pass because you have to. You can't just run the ball 3 straight times every single time.
Right.
You have to throw the ball every once in a while to keep the defense honest.
He's gonna pass on first and second down, and if it's third and long, he's passing again.
And that's fine. But here's the other thing. There's 11 guys who have to run the play who know that, you know what, we're up 28-0 here. I'm Sam Darnold. That out route to the far side of the field needs to be very much out.
Right.
I can't putting it perfectly on the numbers and being off by a football to the inside means that ball is picked off for an interception and going back the other way for 6 points. We're killing this team. The one thing we don't need is that. So there is this level of everyone's human nature is to be safe. in that the play call can be aggressive, but Sam Darnold can't be aggressive with his throws in that spot. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's just a lot of weird things to consider with that Green Bay game. Anyway, it all comes back around to this Vikings team is really good. They're really fun. I'm, like you, interested to see how they play from behind, because they seem very well-rounded, but it's easy to seem well-rounded when you're spanking the opponent every single week, which they kind of have been.
Right. It'll also be interesting to see Sam Darnold play the New York Jets. Now it's not in New York, and most of the Jets that were on the team with him are gone. Like, that's just a completely new team, new coaching staff, everything. So it's not necessarily a revenge game. Sam Darnold has not taken the bait on anything. Every single time they've asked him a question, like, do you feel like the Jets wrong? Do you feel like it was a bad situation, whatever? And he just goes, yeah, he's like, there were some things I could have did better too. I didn't live up to my end of the bar. Like, all the safe answers. Like, you expect the Jets, especially New York fans, to be like, screw this guy sucked, blah, 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 blah. And he basically just answered every question like the most politically correct way possible. To where even Jets fans in comments of the videos are like, how can you not root for that guy, man? Like, that guy was done dirty by us. And now, like, look at him. Like, which is a testament to how Darnold is kind of, when you get trained to respond, when your very first NFL media is New York media, you just treat everything differently. Because reporters have talked about, like, Darnold will be very, not cold or like removed when he answers questions, but you can tell like there's a calculation to how he answers, because he knows that if he says he's seeing ghosts, it's going to end up on the back page and front page in the New York Post in the morning.
Right. Well, and I'll give New York fans credit for being self-aware. Like, do you think they were real thrilled with the Adam Gase
no
run?
No.
What I'm saying, like, I think they probably understand now that was not.
They knew that they didn't set him up for success.
Right. And whatever, Darnold can say he's playing good football now. And also, we're 3 teams removed. He's 3 teams removed from playing for the Jets.
Right.
So is this actually his first time playing the Jets?
I think he played him once in Carolina.
So that's another thing. That's one of those weird. It's just one of the, like, it's not.
I think it's the fact that now he's leading a 4-0 team.
Well, right, I know, but the some of that stuff is just like, I don't. They
got to find some storylines here.
Storylines tired. He's played them, and he's 3 teams removed. What are we talking about?
Right. Yeah. Nothing to be concerned about. All right. Let's wrap this up talking Minnesota Twins. Just announced this morning, President of Baseball Operations Derek Falvey has announced, or the team has announced, I guess, that General Manager Thad Levine will be stepping down from his role as the team's general manager to pursue baseball and non-baseball opportunity, whatever. He's not coming back. It's not a firing technically because his contract expired and they just decided not to renew it.
Yeah, use the word departed in the press release, right? Has chosen to depart from the
mutually agreed to part ways, all that, like, good luck. Basically, like, it's not a firing, but also, we're not giving him a new contract. So interpret that, whatever. But I think to outside fans or maybe traditional fans, they hear Twins firing general manager and they go, whoa, that's huge. Not really, because Derek Falvey's the president of baseball operations, and he is above the general manager. So, like, Derek Falvey's the one who still signs free agents and makes draft picks and trades and all that stuff. Levine was his right-hand man, though. And those guys were hired as a pair after they fired Terry Ryan. And it was like Falvey was the young buck who was going to lead everything. And Levine was basically going to be the 1B who is like, he'll be there in media sessions and he'll be like kind of helping him along the way because he was a little more experienced and been an assistant GM and all that other stuff, where Falvey, this was like his first time being in such a high role that like he was basically training wheels for Falvey at the beginning. And I feel like now that role just probably doesn't need to be the same. And I don't know. Do you see this as just this was probably going to happen anyways? He'd already taken interviews at other teams in the past years. Do you see this as like this is a response to the collapse of last season, of the last month, or do you see this as this guy was probably going to leave anyways, and just the timing of it maybe would show something else?
I don't know the answer to that. I was actually going to ask you that question because you're a little more tuned into something like this, and I'll rephrase it a little bit.
Sure.
Do you see this as a Thad walking away from a scenario that for the same reason that all the fans are frustrated with? Or is he walking away because there was no longer mutual agreement on how to run the team, and the team had enough, and your scenario of like, you know what, you led Falvey down the path that we need to go. Our little chicken gets to hatch, and you know what I mean? He's got his sea legs underneath him now. He's fine on his own. Is it one of the, like, the team deciding to part ways, or is it him coming from a frustration side of, we're not on the same page, and this isn't like the fans?
Right. Well, this is the interesting part, and I don't know, because it just happened, and insiders haven't had a chance to get information and write about it and put it out there. So it'll be fascinating over the course of today what gets put out there on The Athletic and MLB.com and the Star Tribune and all that of what's there. But I think it's probably more of it's just time for a new thing, because Thad Levine had, he'd been an assistant GM in Texas. I believe in his previous stop before that was an assistant GM and was GM, but like in all intents and purposes was an assistant GM in name only. He was a general manager in name only, because he didn't really have power to do much. Now, I think he had a lot of influence, but he didn't get the final call on anything. So I wonder if it was like, all right, like, it's time to go do something else. Like, I've been here. He was here 8 seasons. 8 years ago, they hired him. So, like, it's kind of more a
long time ago. It feels like it shouldn't be that long.
Right, exactly. So I wonder if this is just more of like a natural, like, it's just time to go in a different direction. The way it sounds, it doesn't seem like there's any animosity, but also, I mean, the team it was a contract expiring, right? They didn't fire him. So this felt like it had been in the works for a while, because if they were going to get a new contract, you'd think they would have gotten one already, because Falvey is under contract.
Sure.
So that's where I'm thinking, like, this is probably like, it's probably not a bad terms firing / parting ways, but it's probably like the writing was on the wall that a change of scenery was needed for both sides. And it just coincides with this, to where now the team can pitch it to the fan base as like a sacrificial lamb of like, see, we're not bringing back a high member of the front office. We're learning, kind of a, kind of a spin.
So you think maybe it's a potential.
The fan base is ticked.
They're not doing it necessarily because of the reasons we would hope, but they're going to be able to spin it. Like, see,
I think it's more that
it's just a spin.
Because last year, Thad Levine and Derek Falvey both had their names pop up in the Red Sox head of baseball operation. I don't know what their official title is there, but who Craig Breslow, former Twin, ended up taking that spot. But Derek Falvey and Thad Levine both had their names pop up. Falvey didn't interview. I think Levine did. And Levine interviewed for Philadelphia's opening before they hired Dombrowski, I think. So there have been some, like, his name has popped up in things before. And I wonder if it's maybe he's like, hey, I got a thing. Like, I have a job opportunity that I'm going to take once the season's over, but I'll stay through the end of the year and until my contract expires, and we'll just let it run out and I'll go do my next thing. It could be something like that. But yeah, I think very much this comes at a time where the fan base can, could view this as like, oh, the ownership is offering up. It sounds weird, that. And we'll get into a couple other positions they offered up because I want to be able to talk about them. But
all the hitting coaches.
Yeah, all of the hitting coaches.
Yep.
They got rid of
3 of them. The hitting coach and then the 2 assistants.
Right. Popkins was the head hitting coach. He had been fired. Rudy Hernandez, I believe, was the other one. There was somebody else.
Showing,
yeah,
something
Derek
like that.
Showin or something like that. And they're all gone. So it's a complete revamp of the hitting department. Now look, the Twins, before everything fell apart, were a top 6 offense in baseball. And then everything fell apart. This just might come down to, the Twins had a good offense, but like, as we've learned, like, how do they get to those numbers? Because they struggled in April, they struggled at the end of the season, like, and they were white hot at times. Like, there was just a very up and down ride with this Twins offense. And then we saw it in 2023 when Popkins was the head hitting coach. So like, it just might be, there are good there. It's not that there was not success possible with this hitting group, but it's just an up and down ride. And when they were bad, Corey, forget the last month of the season. The first month of the season, they were bad as a hitting team. and they eventually would find their stride, but they just, I don't know. Popkins, I don't think was a horrible, no good, very bad hitting coach, but I think you can point and say, yeah, there's some room for criticism there, and the game planning and everything going on and approaches. Yeah. So I think this firing is warranted. I don't think it's out of nowhere.
Someone's got to be a sacrificial lamb. And you're right. The season was bookended by really bad hitting on the front end and back end. But one of the things that was also true on the front end and back end is this team's full roster was not intact at either of those times.
Right.
And when the rosters were fully intact, and we talked about this, if you're Royce Lewis, you want to know what makes your job a little easier? Being able to hit between Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton. If you're Jose Miranda, it makes it easier to know that you've got Correa and Kepler on either side. Like some of those, and so I don't, is it a little sacrificial lammy? Yes, it's that. Is it an excuse to be hitting poorly? Professionally speaking, no. You need everybody to pull their own weight. But that's not how team makeup works. You construct the team so that each guy consecutively can help the guy behind them and in front of them in the order. And when things got bad, it's because some of those key cogs relied upon to hit the ball and bail out guys in front of them and behind them in the order weren't there to do it. So it's a chicken or the egg thing with their hitting really this year. Is it the coaching? Is it the players? Like we've talked about all off season long, all post regular season so far, there's like about a half a dozen different places you could point your finger at that team.
And you also wouldn't be wrong no matter where you went. And the
Correct.
Other thing about the hitting coach versus the players, it's a lot easier to fire 3 coaches than it is to get rid of the entire lineup. So
you're going to trade Buxton and Correa and demote Royce Lewis? Like that's not happening. Sorry, Mary Popkins. You're going to chim chiroo the F out of here.
All right. One last thing that I just want to throw out there, and this will be a full discussion next week, but we're already hitting our time limit here. Royce Lewis gave some interesting comments on the final game of the season. Did you see that? Where he's like, I didn't realize it was up to the what he called cheap players to get it done. Where I think Royce Lewis is a guy that doesn't realize quite what he's saying because he's 23 and like he's like been a baby and all he knows, like relatively speaking to how much playing time he's had and whatever. Like I think he's a guy that probably put his foot in his mouth and didn't quite realize the weight of what he was saying. Where it sounded like he was throwing basically like guys like Correa under the bus. Like I didn't know it was up to the cheap players to get things done, considering even though Correa missed most of the second half, he still played more games this season than Royce Lewis did. But it's a fascinating dynamic because at the end of the game, on the final game of the season, Baldelli post-game, Correa post-game, and Lopez post-game said, hey, look, there's all things we need to do better. We have to look inward. He's like, we need to make sure we're doing things. We need to make sure we're coming to the ballpark prepared. We need to make sure we're following game plans. And it's a little bit of, I don't think it was Royce specifically, but I think it's like look, guys, I know you guys are young. I know this is whatever, but this is supposed to be a talented group of players. You need to show up to the ballpark ready to go. And I think late in the season, I just think there were some things that were falling apart. Maybe guys who tried to do too much and whatever. It's worth a full discussion next week, and I'll let you say a piece on it. But it's a weird. Obviously, when you end the season like you did, everybody's frustrated, and it just left a sour taste in the mouth of Twins fans. I think coming from Royce.
Well, there's a level of professionalism that needs to exist. That it sounds like you're just judging from your paraphrasing that Rocco is talking about. It's not being talented anymore. It's being prepared and doing all of the right things. We talked about it the other day, right? There was Correa who came in off the top rope and he talked about the same things, and guys like Royce. We're like, listen, dude, you haven't even been here. What do you mean we need to pull our own weight? So it seems to be a little, it's not the first time that I've heard that there's a little like
back and forth,
a little bit of what is actually happening. And by the way, as with everything, probably both sides are a little true. Does Royce Lewis now know exactly how to completely and utterly prepare at the level that Carlos Correa does? I think it's clear that the answer to that is no, because Carlos Correa is probably most infamously known for being a consummate professional. Right now, is it also right for Carlos Correa to come in and old man, get off my porch, this is how you do things, when he, for 2 seasons in a row, has not been available to his club for important stretches? That is also an important part of this that he needs to be a little self-aware of. And Royce Lewis was there at the end watching it tank around him and him being a part of it and thinking and assuming he's doing everything he can to try to not let this be an utter shit show. And I would take that personally too. I get why he would take that personally.
Well, and I think it wasn't directed completely at Royce, but I wonder if Royce is like, hey man, get off my back here. But also Royce hit $150 the final 2 months of the season.
Yeah. There's truth to both arguments. If I am struggling, the last thing I need personally is someone to tell me I'm struggling. I know. Back off.
Well, and this will be the interesting thing, is that it was Royce struggling just because he struggles and he whatever, or is it because it felt like it was very coordinated when Pablo, the top pitcher, Correa, the top hitter, and the manager all come out and say the exact same thing. Like Rocco brought them into his office and it's like, hey, hammer this home before you guys leave. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure this message gets out. And it'll just be I'm not saying Royce wasn't following the game plan. I'm not saying that's what they're alleging. I'm not saying that. But is it a little bit of all right, Royce, you're uber talented and you've done a lot. And I've said this before. He's done a lot of just pure vibes and talent. There's going to be a point where he needs to learn how to be a hitter. And I think it's a rough learning curve for Royce right now. And he's got some frustrations, which is fair. So
he played roughly a half season of professional baseball.
Right.
In 3 seasons of baseball. You know what I mean?
Right. And he didn't really have a minor league career because of injuries and COVID. And
it's about being an adult. It's about being a professional. It's all of those things that he needs to learn. But at the same time, you don't think he doesn't know that it wasn't bad or that it was bad? He knows. I'm going to need you to just put your arm. You need to put your arm around somebody every once in a while and be like, listen, man, we got a lot to learn, but it's okay. You did what you like.
Right. Well, and who knows if they did, and this was all right, we need to give you a big poke on your way into we don't know. I don't know. I don't know what.
Yep. There's a lot of things, and it's not probably an either or. It's not probably an either or. It's a this and this and this.
But just remember, the owner wouldn't do anything differently. Just remember.
Yep.
The players look inwardly, the coaches look inwardly, the front office looks inwardly. Hey, how can we be better next year? And the ownership goes, A+ job for us, guys. Pat on the back.
We just got unlucky, didn't we?
Didn't we? Shoot. I mean, that's a direct quote from Falvey. It's we can't just go oopsies and then whistle past this. We need to sit in this mess for a little bit and realize how much it stinks. And the ownership is well, guys, it's not going to get worse. We're not going to cut more payroll.
Sometimes the worst thing that could happen to the Twins is they actually are successful because it's evidenced that you don't have to do anything.
Right. All right. We got to wrap it up. This has been the Morning Sports Desk on a Friday, the 4th of October.
The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WDCNaradio.com.